Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the webinar for the CINR FOA and the infrastructure FOA and a variety of other things that will be covered during several presentations that you will have the opportunity to participate in over the next 3 days. My name is Aaron Gravel, and I work with the Office of Nuclear Energy for the U.S. Department of Energy. And I work at the Idaho Operations Office in the program office there. As I mentioned before, here in a few minutes, we'll have a few presentations over the course of 3 days, but you're going to have an overview today of the Consolidated Innovative Nuclear Research R&D Funding Opportunity Announcement, which is DE FOA 0001913. We'll also have a presentation updating everybody on the scholarship and fellowship solicitation that will be released shortly. More details to follow. And also information related to the scientific infrastructure support for consolidated innovative nuclear research, which is our infrastructure FOA, which is DE FOA 0001914. We're certainly glad that you're participating and that you're here with us and that you have an interest in the FOAs. Over the course of the 3 days, you'll also have the opportunity to listen in and participate in some discussion, presentation and discussion on a variety of different work scopes that will be part of the CINR FOA. So with that, again, we're pleased that you're here with us, and we hope that you enjoy the presentations and that you gather up as many questions as you can throughout the course of the presentations, and we'll be fielding questions throughout the 3-day period as well. With that, I would like to introduce Dr. John Gilligan. He is our NEIP Integration Office Director, and John will give a presentation at this time.
Thank you very much, Aaron. Good to see everybody again. Just let me add my welcome to you participating in this webinar broadcast, and thank you for your participation in the NEUP program and all the other programs that we'll be talking about today. As Aaron said, I'm John Gilligan. I'm also, as well as Director of the NEUP Integration Office, Distinguished University Professor of Nuclear Engineering at NC State University. We're coming to you from Germantown, Maryland today, which is, of course, the headquarters for DOE and E, where most of the staff is. And we do want to thank DOE, NE, Office of Nuclear Energy, especially Ed McGinnis, Shane Johnson, John Hertzig, all of these individuals for support of the university programs and industry programs and support of the national labs in this process. Also Mike Worley, Tom Miller, and of course our manager, Kenny Osborne, who is also here in the studio with us today. So it's an exciting time. It's once a year that we get with you to present all of our new ideas and work scopes to be proposed to from the universities and other organizations. 2019, there are a number of new kind of activities, changes that are coming about, and we think they're all very good. For instance, as a result of discussion with the NETO group, which is Nuclear Engineering Department heads over the last year, we've of course brought back pre-applications this year for the NEUP process. We didn't have the pre-applications last year, which did result in some confusion, we think, and so with the pre-applications coming back in that process, we'll get a more well-defined set of full proposals coming in February. Also, we're eliminating the semi-blind process for the first time for full proposals, again as a result of suggestions from the Nuclear Engineering Department Heads organization. We think this will be a clean process. It had limited success in the past in terms of promoting the the advantage of younger faculty. So we think we've done a good job with that, and so we don't need that additional hurdle at this time. So no semi-blind process, and of course, we'll explain that in the next presentation. Also, we'll be improving the technical review responses that you'll be getting. We'll be paying close attention to those in the review process. So all those came from discussions with Meadow. Now for 2019, the new FOA, I have to tell you, there's a lot of new work scopes this year. You've seen the work scopes, the draft work scopes that have been put on the website at INL. At least 50% of the work scopes that I estimate are new this year or heavily modified from last year. So there are a lot of new opportunities, lots of new areas for proposing new technical proposals. Last year, we awarded about $65 million in funding. This year, it could be as much as $70 million based on what is going to be out there in the FOA. But of course, all that depends on budget, and we don't know the budget until probably next spring in detail. So again, things look very positive, so it should be encouraging to all faculty and others to put together good proposals for 2019. I might also mention a few of the details about the 2018 awards, just to give you a good feel for how effective the program is in supporting various areas. About half of the awards, 50% of the awards last year in 2018, which are just being negotiated now, of course, went to nuclear engineering faculty. That means about 50% went to other disciplines, including chemical engineering, mechanical engineering, physics, et cetera. So there's a large amount of, including civil engineering, actually. So there's a large number of our awards go to faculty in other disciplines, which is a good thing. Almost half of the awards also in the current round of awards went to junior faculty, went to assistant professors and associate professors, which is good for the program. We like to encourage young faculty to participate, and they've actually done very well, competed very well against in the whole field of proposals. So this is a good thing. This is not so much different than in the past either. We did see an increase this current last year in national lab partners that were successful with the proposals that were selected. 75% of the selected proposals for award did have national lab partners. It's not a requirement that you have a national lab partner, but it appears that having a national lab partner is not a bad thing in terms of the successful proposals. Also, we had an uptick in the successful proposals that had industry partners. Previously, it had been probably at the 15% level. This year, this current year, it was about 33% of the successful proposals had industry partners. You do get extra points for partnering with industry in the review process, so that actually is a very good thing. So having industry as a partner is positive for the results as well. So having that all in mind, one additional new thing this year, we're going to have 3 IRPs, and Greg and Joanne and others will explain exactly what those IRPs are going to be this year. But last year we had no IRP awards. You recall the IRPs are the large $3 to $5 million awards over 3 to 5 years, and so they're significant effort. They're due in February, and so that's exciting for the next round of funding as well. And we'll certainly key you in on exactly what those areas are. So today, over the next 3 days, actually, today, Wednesday, and Thursday, you have the schedule, agenda that was presented on the website and the draft work scopes. You're going to hear about the different programs supporting universities, national labs, and industry, namely the NEUP program, the NEET program, NEET, the NSUF, the scholarship and fellowship, which is part of the IUP program for us at DOE, and the infrastructure program. So you're going to be hearing about all of those at one time or the other. The NEUP the NEAT program, NSUF, scholarships and fellowships, and the infrastructure. So we're going to present the programs in general, and to make sure you understand the scope and some of the detailed workings of how to submit a proposal and the rules and regulations and those sorts of things. We'll make sure you have that information. And then we'll go into each individual work scope. We have probably 55 work scopes or something on that order, which is a large number of work scopes. Many years ago, we probably only had 20 or 25. So a large number of work scopes. This is good because you can respond to many of those work scopes, not with the same proposal, but with new ideas for each work scope. We'll go through each of those work scopes and explain what they are. You'll have an opportunity to ask questions through the GoToMeeting site, and we'll explain that as time goes on. Very important that you be able to ask those questions, and of course you'll have an opportunity to either contact me or the staff in the process to ask questions later on. So with that, I think we're at a point now that we can start going into the details of the program, and we're delighted to have a number of very learned people here to explain what the program is and tell us exactly what's going to be done in the whole process, and the experts in the area. So first I want to introduce Joanne Hanners from DOEID. She's the main contracting officer for the program, and so we'll be dealing with many of the universities, national labs, and industry in the process starting when the awards are made next year. So Joanne, please join me up here.
Good morning, everyone. And as John said, I'm Joanne Hanners. I'm the contracting officer for the Department of Energy located in the Idaho office. Great, thank you, Greg. Okay, to start off, we're going to go ahead and let you know how to ask a question during this webinar that's important to us. So as you can see on the slide down at the bottom, you go ahead and type in your question, and then all those will be answered either during the webinar if we have time, and if not, they'll be posted on NEAP.gov. So you want to make sure that you check there. And if there are specific questions from individuals on the eligibility or the work scope definitions, I will address those offline. So I'll go over the 2018 outcomes. That's always of interest for everyone to see how it did go. Everything played through for the year before. So in FY18, DOE did invest $64 million in nuclear energy facility access, cross-cutting technology development, and infrastructure awards in 29 states. So in total, there were 89 projects that were selected to receive funding that will help advance innovative nuclear technologies. These awards provide funding for nuclear energy-related research through the Nuclear Energy University Program, which is the NEUP or the NEAP program, the Nuclear Science User Facilities, or NSUF, and Nuclear Energy Enabling Technology Programs, the NEAT programs. Now, a number of these nuclear technology developers will receive access to unique capabilities and other assistance consistent with the goals and objectives of the Gateway for Accelerated Innovation in Nuclear, which is the GAIN initiative. As you can see, for the NUP outcomes, we had 423 full applications. If you look at the bar graph, it displays the different work scopes that were applied under. So of those 423, we had 12 dismissed, 63 applications were recommended. For the NEAT outcomes, we had 54 full applications, 5 were recommended. And as you can see, that was spread across 4 different work scopes. For NSUF-1, we had 7 applications, and then we had 3 recommended applications, and that was over 2 work scopes. NSUF-2, we had 10 full applications received, with 4 recommended over 3 separate work scopes. So we want to go over the objectives and the priorities. The DOE mission, any mission, is for the U.S. nuclear power in order to meet the nation's energy by 1, enhancing the long-term viability and competitive of the existing U.S. reactor fleet, 2, developing an advanced reactor pipeline, and 3, implementing and maintaining the national strategic fuel cycle and supply chain infrastructure. Now, all of the applications submitted under this FOA will need to demonstrate a tie to at least one of those 3 priorities. NE does conduct cross-cutting technology, nuclear energy R&D, and associated infrastructure support activities, which develop innovative technologies to offer the promise of dramatically improved performance for its mission needs as stated above. So our funding mechanisms, first, universities, we have cooperative agreements issued by DOE. We have national laboratories, which are funded by work authorizations through DOE. We have industry, which is cooperative agreements, also issued by DOE. Then we have the nuclear science user facilities, the NSUF access, which is funded by an NSUF user agreement. Collaborative opportunity, we have the NSUF, as I mentioned, it does require a user agreement. We have applications for the CINR R&D support and NSUF access, and then we have the applications just for the NSUF access only. Eligibility requirements, ensure the R&D is delivered in the necessary timeline to support programmatic missions. Encourage diverse participation, and based upon performance and no cost extensions and the project load. For the official FOA, you can find that on www.grants.gov or also on NEAP.gov. Oh, I'm sorry, that's where you apply. Important dates for everyone. The FOA, the pending release is August of 2018. NSUF LOIs are due August 30th, 2018. R&D NSUF pre-applications are due September 20th, 2018, with IRPs excluded from that. NSUF preliminary SOWs are November 15th, 2018. Full application invitations will be December of 2018. NSUF final statement of works, January 24th, 2019. Full IRP applications, February 12th, 2019. And lastly, the full R&D applications are also due February 12th, 2019. And to go over the FOA overview, we have Greg, who manages our integration office.
Joanne, thank you. I would like to point out that those dates that Joanne gave, of course, are predicated on getting the FOA out. So if the FOA for some reason does not come out as anticipated, we will reflect the appropriate change in those dates so that you have the right time that you need to provide response. The organization of the FOA is consistent with years past. We're pleased that the IRPs are back with us this year. Appendix A will be our program supporting and mission supporting that includes the NEUP and NSUF work scopes. That is aimed exclusively at universities to lead. For the Appendix B, that will be program supporting. One new change this year for the NSUF2, which is access only. You'll find this in Appendix B. Those may only be led by an industrial applicant. So you'll find the NEAT and NSUF work scopes there. And in Appendix C is where you will find our program directed IRPs, and those are eligible to be led by university. And of course, collaborations are strongly encouraged in all of those areas. For those of you who have been with us for many years, the definitions that we work with for our program supporting, mission supporting, and program directed applications have not changed. The program supporting are, although not completely directed, they're very intrinsic to the programs. Mission supporting, while they do have to support the mission of NE, they can be more blue sky. And of course, our program-directed applications are just that. They are directed by programs intended to solve problems, and the variety of directives in those are borne out in the weights of your reviews, and we'll talk about those a little later on. Award sizes are also consistent with years past. Program supporting applications will be up to 800,000, mission supporting 400,000. You can have a period of performance up to 7 years if it is a radiation and PIE and an NSUF work scope. If it's not one of those things, then we anticipate that your program, your project will be concluded in 3 years, and there are significant penalties of eligibility if you have no cost extensions in those programs. So for Appendix A, only universities are eligible to lead, and we do strongly encourage national laboratories and industry to collaborate. We are featuring some work scopes this year that are co-joined with RC UK, and in one of our IRPs that we'll talk about later, it will require a foreign collaboration with a Japanese collaborator. For our Appendix A, we anticipate approximately $45 million that will result in about 56 awards. For Appendix B, these are larger programs. They're supported by direct program dollars of up to $1 million per project. NSUF work scopes are limited at $500,000 for an R&D request, up to $4 million if you have a radiation and PIE, $1.5 billion for radiation, and $750,000 for beamline. That would be the value of the NSUF access request. These will be 3 to 7 years, depending on what you are asking for. Do want to point out yet once again that for eligibility, if you are in a NSUF 1 work scope, those are open to be led by universities, national laboratories, or industry. If you are applying to NSUF 2, you must be in an industry to lead those applications. We are anticipating approximately $10 million of awards for about 15 awards in Appendix B. Excuse me. For Appendix C, these are our IRPs. I have listed them here by title. We do accept that for 2 of these, we don't have full detail out yet. Do know that detail will be forthcoming as soon as it's available. It has been written, it just hasn't been finalized. IRP NE1, an international challenge problem for nuclear energy. This will be a 3-year project for $3 million. This will require Japanese collaboration. So do know that if you do not have a Japanese collaborator that is funded by a Japanese concern, you will not be fully reviewed. For NEAMS 1, extend NEAMS tools to support the development of the Versatile Test Reactor, VTR experimental program. That is a 5-year, $4 million project. And for IRP FC1, use nuclear fuel disposition for storage and transportation. This is $5 million over 3 years. Universities are exclusively eligible to lead in Appendix C. We do anticipate collaboration from national laboratories and industry, and of course, international laboratories. International collaborations are encouraged and even required for IRP NE1. Here is a summary of the lead institution participation for the different appendices. There's nothing new here other than what I've already said for the Appendix A, B, and C. So we'll leave this here just for information. The technical narrative application page limits have not changed from years past. In Appendix A and B, you are required to submit a 2-page letter of intent for any application requesting NSUF access. The purpose of this is to get you aligned with the appropriate NSUF resource to help develop your application. You will then submit a 3-page pre-application. That was not the case this year. They are back this year. For a NEUP, you will have a 10-page full application limit. That again is not blinded. It is an open application this year. And you can have up to 15 pages for a NSUF application that is requesting R&D support and access. For your IRPs, that is a 50-page limit for the 3 IRPs that are listed. And again, we'll be forthcoming with work scopes soon on 2 of those that aren't out yet. Collaborations, as we've said, with universities, national laboratories, and foreign institutions strongly encouraged. Here are the work scopes that will be greatly benefited by collaborations with the Engineering and Physical Sciences Research Council, that is the EPSRC in the UK, FC 1.2, RC1, RC3, RC5, and MSRC1. Those will all be available for collaboration with UK institutions. Your application should be developed such that they are standalone. Do remember that US funding does not go to foreign institutions, but RC UK does have funding for their institutions in these collaboration areas, and collaboration with the Japanese Research Institution is required for IRP in E1. The collaborations are intended to enhance and diversify DOE's research portfolio. To that extent, know that national laboratories do not garner any points of consideration. However, relationships with minority serving institutions and underrepresented groups and industry, as well as foreign institutions, do garner those consideration points. For university-led applications, except for those under Appendix B, non-university collaborators in composite can account for no more than 20% of the total funds provided by the government. As I stated earlier, applications developed with international collaborators should be written such that success is not predicated on delivery of work scope from your foreign collaborator. They should be standalone. And the funding is, of course, for US institutions only. And if you do have a foreign collaborator, they cannot be a denied party, nor a party require an export license. And US funding is only provided to US institutions, not to international collaborators. For the diverse partnerships, MSI and URG, those points of consideration are awarded in relationship to the degree to which those partners contribute to the applicant's ability to support and deliver the relevant program elements. So minority serving institution is one that is defined by the Department of Education. Those are not automatic points. They must play a specific role. So that is attributed to the institutional level, and a URG, or an underrepresented group, is a self-identification, and that's based on a variety of criteria that you can read in the FOA. Examples may be technical areas where we don't have a large representation of professionals. That may go to physical attributes such as gender, etc. Collaborations are evaluated as part of relevancy. So those are the reviewers that will be evaluating for the additional points of consideration. And those collaborations are not required to achieve the highest relevancy score. So do know that you can receive perfect relevance without having any of those types of collaborations. I'd like to move on to policy update and reminders. The top three, the top four are relatively new, relatively only with respect to the fourth one. Again, the review process is in an open format. There is no longer a requirement to blind your applications. We hope that will be of benefit to you. All CINR applications must include a list of publications that have resulted from previous CINR support. That is something that NSUF has done. It's something now that is applying to the entire FOA. NSUF 2 may only be led by industry. And the fourth one, applicants are required to obtain a DUNS number. Most of you will have that, and you must be registered with the SAM website. That's something where we found there are a few deficiencies, and procurement was working to get people registered on that. NSUF applications are required to affirm their ability to accept the user agreement, and you'll do that as you submit the LOI, the pre-application, and then the full application. NSUF pre-applications have a separate section that describe readiness. That's something that was new last year, so do know that those are reviewed heavily, and readiness is a required factor per their criteria, and those are outlined in the FOA. Your statement of work, if you are an NSUF applicant, will be uploaded to neup.gov. As always, you are considered final when the pre-application is submitted with respect to collaborators and PIs. We can still make changes in that regard, but you must contact our office to do so. The driver and back of that is because we're managing conflict of interest as we assign reviews. So it's not that we don't want you to update or change collaborators. It's just that we need to understand what those updates are such that we can appropriately manage COI. You as a PI are responsible for selection of your work scope. So if you do get comments back indicating there's perhaps a misalignment, That responsibility is yours, so please do read those carefully, ask the appropriate questions to your program managers and TPOCs, but you are responsible for that. Once your application goes from pre-application to a full application, that full application is competed in the work scope that the pre-application was submitted to. So that means if you want to change that work scope between pre-application and full application, that again requires contact with the integration office. And just to further substantiate the point, the only thing we're doing with that information is managing conflict of interest. We have no intention of limiting your work or being prescriptive in where you apply. For review purposes, conflict of interest restrictions, if necessary, can be attributed to the individual, not the institution. So we're trying to stretch in terms of the reviews, and you as an applicant are, of course, responsible for not exceeding your submission limits. Those are limits in the case of the number of applications you can submit, as well as the page limits that are part of the application package. All of the required materials must be submitted by the published deadlines. Anything submitted after that may not be considered. Every year we have several applicants that need a little more time. You all have probably heard stories of individuals being declined, so do know that that is your responsibility. As it turns out, we have no penalty whatsoever for early submission. Uninvited applications may be submitted as a full application per the stipulations of the FOA. That does not extend to NSUF applications. If you are declined a pre-application going to the full application stage, you may not submit a full application. US funding only for US institutions, not for international institutions. And for university-led applications, except for those under Appendix B, non-university collaborators can deposit no more than 20% of total funds from the government. If you have need for pre-award costs, we anticipate an announcement in June with projects starting in October. You are eligible to go ahead and have pre-award expenditures, but do know that if something is to go astray in negotiations, you and or your institution are responsible for those costs and they will not be borne by the DOE. Please do not lock the cells in your budget spreadsheets. As we go to negotiation with the awards through the DOE Ad Hoc Procurement Office, it is incredibly important that they have the ability to understand what those calculations are and update them as needed. If you intend to either transfer a project or if you yourself are headed to another institution, there are very prescriptive guidelines for that. Do know that applications that are submitted to this FOA are considered submitted by the institution and not the individual. To that extent, there are some very harsh guidelines in terms of awards that may not go with you, but can be accommodated in a variety of methodologies that are pointed out at NEUP.gov. And again, any changes to partners or collaborators, they must be approved by the contracting officer, and we're only intending to monitor COI and limit that. Your submittal guidelines and eligibility, the graphics found on these slides can also be found on our website. It's a flow chart for you to navigate your eligibility. You are ineligible to submit to the FOA if you're currently a lead PI on an active IRP. If you're a university PI with 3 or more R&D projects after December 31st, 2019, you are inactive. If you are a PI with a no-cost extension on any DOE NE-funded project beyond December 31st, 2019, you are also ineligible to submit. You can be included on up to 6 pre-applications, but only on 3 of those can you be a principal investigator. For full applications, a university PI can submit no more than 1 IRP, or they can have no more than 3 active R&D projects at any given time, and you may not submit more full applications than you are eligible to lead. For NSUF access, do know that we evaluate these on a case-by-case evaluation, or for NSUF access, those are excluded. For an NSUF project with R&D, those are evaluated on a case-by-case basis. In Appendix B, these are funded by need crosscut. There is a difference in the eligibility requirement. You are limited to 3 applications per institution per work scope area. Each of those applications do accrue to the total limits that you can have in Appendix A or C. Existing no-cost extensions in before December 31st, 2019 are not subject to restriction. So if you do request a no-cost extension, the end of December 2019 is a magic date. If you are going to request a no-cost extension for projects that will end in 2018, those must be submitted by April 15th. For NEAT CTD funded research, university, national laboratories, and industry, 3 applications per work scope area per institution for universities. Those do accrue. For IRP applications, applicants are eligible to submit if they're as the PI, if they're designated as PI for no more than 1 currently funded NE research project. So if you have 1 existing NUP project, you are eligible to submit on an IRP, but that project should not be active beyond December 31st, 2019. PIs may submit an R&D application and an IRP application the same year, given those rules of engagement. NSUF projects that request R&D support, eligibility for those, evaluate on a case-by-case basis because we understand that those may be up to a 7-year duration. Access-only applications, those are exempt since the work is performed at a different institution. For pre-applications, if you have an uninvited status at the end of the pre-application round, you are eligible to submit a full application unless you are competing in an area requesting NSUF access or supports, and there, because of additional reviews that are required in the expense, you may not compete a full application. If you do compete an uninvited application, do know that to get a full technical review, you must have an average score of at least high relevance on your full application and at least moderate program priority on the full application. Here's the weighting of scores that we talked about earlier for mission supporting, and program directed. Do know that for the NSUF access only, that is a 65% technical and a 35% relevancy. These weights are driven by senior NE leadership and have been the same for many years. The FOA details the full criteria for all sections and application types. I would encourage you to look at those. And as we spoke earlier, additional relevancy consideration is given for effective partnerships, including MSI, URG, industry and foreign collaborations. Partnerships with national laboratories are not considered in that evaluation. Program priority is a separate criteria that is scored by our relevancy reviewers. Can't stress this enough. Semi-blind reviews are not being performed this year. If you choose through misunderstanding to blind your application, it will still be reviewed. You will not be able to submit an updated application that is not blinded. So do know that this is the opportunity to fully reference your work, name yourself and your collaborators. Cost sharing. For any application led by universities, cost sharing is certainly permitted, but it is not required. If an application is led by entities other than universities or FFRDCs, in brief, national laboratories, a cost share of at least 20% of total allowable costs are required. We give you here the definition of that, and that is the sum of the government share, including those funds that would go to the FFRDC. It's up to 20% of those costs that must be shared. Those requirements do not apply to the value of the NSUF access. So if you have an application that has an R&D component and an NSUF access component, you must have a 20% cost share on the R&D component, not the NSUF access component. Cost sharing is not an evaluated criteria, but it certainly is appreciated by the department. Here are some review process tools and submissions, with the exception of not having a blind application. These are the same processes and criteria that have been employed by the office for many years now. So we've given you the brief flow chart. Do know that the approximate weights for program supporting, mission supporting, and program directed applications are different. So the relevancy weights and the technical weights do attribute differently. And These materials on the next two slides are in the FOA. I give them here as a general reference so that you have this package when you download these slides if you choose to look at them. This is the FOA at a glance, generally describing the amount of money available in the work scopes, the duration of those projects, any cost share requirements, collaborations, etc. This next table is also in the FOA. We hope that this is a valuable resource to you. If you have any questions on this, we've got some contacts at the end of the presentation. Please do contact us. We'll help you walk through what the requirements are so that you can submit a full and compliant application. The tools that we just spoke about in our TPOCs can be found at these address links. So for the eligibility workflow, those are the two graphic tables where you can walk through and understand how many projects you have versus how many projects you may apply for. The federal and technical points of contact are there as a full list, so you will understand who the TPOCs are, who the program managers are, and that's also true for the IRP point of contact list as well. If you have questions or want additional contact, those are here. The list of TPOCs in general can be found under the appropriate tab, either R&D, infrastructure, IRP, etc., at neup.gov. If you have procurement questions, you can contact Brendan at id.doe.gov. Our address for any integration office, any general question you have according to your application or general submittal questions, the phone numbers are listed here. That'll get you myself or Drew Thomas, or you can contact us at nup.inl.gov. With that, I will leave this general list of dates, and do know that we are pending a release for August of 2018, and should we be successful with that, the rest of the dates will flow. So with that, I'd like to invite others to the podium. Be happy to take any questions that you might have, and of course, any question that doesn't get answered because of time considerations, or if you have a question that's not specific to the general mechanics of the FOA, but a specific work scope, we'd be happy to take those offline. Any question that we don't get to here in this forum, we will be capturing all of these and they will be put up as a Q&A online.
Okay, as Joanne mentioned at the beginning, there is a question box on your GoToWebinar application. So please submit your questions there, and we'll take questions for the next 15 minutes or so before the next presentation. So John, Greg, and Joanne, for industry lead projects, do these count against the DOE NE projects that are allowed? Or do those projects count against applying for the CINR? Meaning, I'm assuming the assumption is the industry FOA that came out earlier this year. Do those count against the total number of projects?
No, those are separate entities.
Can research scientists from universities be lead PIs?
Yes, they can. I'll let John provide some additional detail.
Yes, they can if it's approved by their own university, of course. They have to get that done there. But if they're qualified as judged by the individual university and approved to submit a proposal, yes. We've had many examples of research scientists, even some advanced postdocs receiving awards.
Do reactor upgrades and GSI projects, are those considered for the CINR R&D project limits?
No, those do not count to the R&D project limit, nor would a no-cost extension if you had a no-cost extension on one of those projects. Those do not count, either one of those. Those are, any eligibility requirement holds true to that specific FOA. It was a clarification by Kenny Osborne in the back of the room.
Okay, if you have questions, please submit them now. If we don't have further questions in the next 2 or 3 minutes, we will conclude this session and start the scholarship and fellowship session at noon. Can we volunteer to be a reviewer for work scope topics that we are not submitting to?
Oh, absolutely. We'd be delighted to hear from anybody who would like to review. We do have some basic criteria. We will need you to register with our site. We'll need a full CV, some other metadata from you, and then we're happy to use you as long as it's not a conflict of interest.
Yeah, I would encourage faculty and, well, of course, National Lab folks as well, to submit, be a reviewer, because the more good reviewers that we have, the better the process is. And for young faculty in particular, you can put that on your resume as being something important that you've done and serve DOE and the headquarters and the whole process. So I would encourage all faculty, especially, to become one of our reviewers and submit the data to our office. And if judged properly and approved, then you can be a reviewer.
Are there detailed instructions on teaming with UK university partners?
So the detail we have would be that your application, of course, should be developed so that it can have standalone success. We don't have a list of institutions. This is the first time that we've had RC UK collaborations available. I'm looking to Kenny Osborne to see if there has been any contact with the UK.
Done this, I think, two times previously, but they have this list. They're participating, or they want to participate in the list that we have, the 4 or 5 work scopes, and their researchers are viewing this webinar in those particular scopes. And so we're not a matchmaker, so we're not quite sure how you're going to make those connections, other than leave that up to you, how you're going to be able to.
Kenny, would it be possible to put the contact for RC UK, give them an administrative contact on our website so that they can at least contact RC UK?
If she would allow that, yes.
Okay, so if allowed by that individual, we'll put that information there for you. For those individuals tuned in from RC UK, do know that we host the full NS&E sourcebook, which is developed by North Carolina State. We have a copy of that on our website, which lists out all of the faculty at a variety of NE universities and their talents. I'll let John give additional information on that. And they have received that as well.
Yeah, what Greg just said, I've developed the so-called Nuclear Energy University Education Sourcebook, which has a listing of all the nuclear energy faculty in the U.S., a large number of them. So you can send that to your colleagues in the UK. They are trying to build up their nuclear program, of course, and it's going to be up to you to basically identify the universities. You tend to know which universities have the bigger nuclear programs there already. So, but you're the experts. You need to develop those contacts.
And as a point of information, in the past, the UK has actually sent out instructions for their own researchers. And so if those do become available and we're aware of them, we will post a link of those as well on the website. I have an ongoing NEUP project. Can I still lead 3 pre-applications, but understand that I can only lead 2 full applications?
That is correct.
Since you will not do the semi-blind review, what is the review process?
The review process is the same. It just doesn't have a semi-blind component. So mechanically, as it used to unfold, we would allow a reviewer access to your technical narrative, which was blinded. They would enter their review score and comments on that, and then those were locked down. They're unable to update that, and they then evaluated all of the other materials in the application. This year, they will know whatever you put in your full application in terms of referencing prior work, outlining your facilities, outlining your personal accomplishments. They will have that access. So there's no difference mechanistically except for they'll know who you are and what you've done, whatever detail you choose to give them in the full application narrative. And the pre-applications, same deal.
For the IRP that requires Japanese collaboration, could the Japanese partner be funded, or do they have to have their funding from Japan directly?
They have their own funding from Japan directly. There are no US funds that are sent to a foreign institution.
I'm an affiliate faculty at a university and owner of a private company. May I apply to be the PI at the university-led program and have my company act as a partner?
I'll leave this to Joanne to address. I'd be happy to address it. So that does have repercussions of conflict of interest in that we have seen that in the past. It is something that has been adjudicated as not allowed. However, without all the circumstances, if there is a very unique capability from the company and there's not benefit to the owner, it potentially could be allowed, but that is something that would have to be fully addressed.
Well, I would just add that usually universities are not going to allow somebody that's not a full-time employee to be a PI. So it would be unlikely that somebody from industry that's only an adjunct or something like that would be allowed to submit a proposal from a university. But it does happen in the case of SBIRs, STTRs, faculty tend to be presidents of companies, and funding may go to the industry and then flow back to the university. It could go both ways. So again, as Greg says, it depends on the individual circumstances as to how this would be handled.
For including a list of publications that resulted from prior CINR funding, do we have a separate designated area, or will that go in a 10-page technical write-up?
No, that's not part of your 10 pages. You'll have a separate document upload for that. That can take whatever form or format you want it to, bibliographically, but it is not counting towards the 10-page limit on your narrative.
On the application site, for those that are familiar, it will be its own upload area. Can individuals and institutions be identified in the technical narrative?
Absolutely.
Are National Laboratory Joint Appointees allowed to submit as a university PI?
I believe that a joint appointee, I think you could submit as one or the other, but not both. So by that I mean you can't have an application in one area as a university PI and an application in another area as a national lab PI.
And we're talking about both as lead and collaborator. So those
Correct.
things are checked. So if you're a lead university PI, you've got to be a collaborating university PI across the board. Are there any nationality restrictions on leading NEUPs?
You must be employed by a U.S. institution. That's clarified in the back of the room as a full-time employee of a U.S. institution.
Okay, those are all the questions that we have. We will take a 5-minute break here, and we'll return with Wan Yoon from DOE-NE to present on the IUP Scholarship and Fellowship Call.